Sabotage, you say? What's up, guys? That go with a pencil here. Fun fact, I do mean to have it on me and keep it on me at all times. And another fun fact, I like to yap a lot. This video is 8 minutes and 56 seconds long. I can promise you we will be here longer than that. So please, check out the link to Lumiere's channel and the original video. They both will be linked in the description down below. Of course, we're going to be talking about how Satoru Gojo, I presume we're going to be talking about how Satoru Gojo fell. So like, we're going to get active. And I'm going to be yapping. So let's not waste any more time and let's hop right into it. 3, 2, go. Ooh.
Gojo's death was an event that rattled the whole Jujutsu Kaisen fanbase.
That is an understatement. I'm sorry if you could tell me I have it already, but I'm thinking, especially like now that JJK's over and it's been over and people have talked and talked some more and talked again, and I will be talking and talking more and talking again. Like the series has kind of hit that, like, okay, now we're just talking about versus battles and matchups, but like a lot of us are still talking about the narrative analysis, but like the impact that Gojo's death had is crazy. Honestly, dare I say the most, especially manga-wise. Like, obviously, once the anime hits, it's gonna be probably even crazier because it's gonna like refresh everything. Considering that's probably not gonna come out until like, at best, if Mappa keeps producing it yearly, like what, 2026, but presumably 2027. Like, it's gonna take a minute. But even still, well, because it's gonna take a minute, it's probably gonna take a while for us to like recollect and go back to that. But the thing is, the big thing is the idea that, all right, he perished, and then the whole the fan base was already divided on Gojo versus Sukuna, but then like half the fan base got mad, and the other half of the fan base antagonized the other half of the fan base that got mad. And it was just like straight, like, especially considering the Sukuna meme wars that were going on before that. Like, he has, and it may be a bold claim to say, but he has the most impactful like death in years in anime, at least respective to his community. I don't know. And then again, I just haven't been in the anime manga sphere for too long, so maybe there's like a more recent one that someone could mention that has like a greater impact. But like, at least in my mind, it's Satoru Gojo, and it's especially hit so hard in a series like JJK where a bunch of characters were dying already. It's like we were used to it, but a lot of us were not expecting Satoru Gojo to get cooked like that. But many of us also did, so shout out to all the Sukuna sloppers.
Many fans felt betrayed and disappointed.
Oh, I want to react to that video too. Jujutsu Kaisen's ending was horrible. I do want to talk about that one. Jujutsu Kaisen's ending is a disaster. The Weep Command, I never even noticed that. That one's long. I'll have to double check that.
To this day, people debate over the ending of this fight and how it was a bad decision narratively.
Now, I remember back, once again, you can definitely tell my whole perspective. The character arc you can go through in the pencil playlist as you go through the JDK reviews. You can see my perspective slowly shift. And ultimately, I thought, but that's the thing. Once Kenjaku died, I was like, oh no, then now the narrative decision makes perfect sense. If we're not doing anything with that, yeah, this narrative decision makes perfect sense. Because I was still hoping and coping for the merger. And I was like, there's no way they're beating Sukuna and then the merger in quick succession. That's not happening. And I don't think JDK is getting a dark ending because it's a shonen manga. But like, now knowing how this series has ended, looking back at it retrospectively, it kind of was the only option. Like, I'll admit, a lot of people had called that. And to be fair, I'm kind of disappointed in myself that I didn't call it. I call myself a sort of narrative analysis man, and somehow I don't think of the idea that, yeah, Gojo's ultimately a roadblock. That's why we removed him from majority of the manga. So I guess the only option is to kill him. So and that's even one of the videos I plan on making. I want to talk about whether or not sealing Satoru Gojo away, locking away your strongest character for the good guys for so long, and then insta-giving him 15 chapters after he's reintroduced. Is that like good writing, smart writing, or lazy writing? Is it and you may be like, whoa, what do you mean lazy writing? But like, you have a problem in your narrative based on the power level you have decided to grant one character. Is writing around that character, I'm sorry, I hit the mic, but is writing around that character good? I think the way Gege, like, if it was done almost any differently, I think I'd say it's lazy, and I may be, like, spoiling that video. Depends on whether or not I'll make it. If y'all are interested in it, let me know. But, like, it depends, but essentially, I think it's good writing right now, right here off the top of my dome piece, because a whole chunk of the series was built around it. Like, the whole opening arc of the villains is specifically to seal Gojo. So like we built the narrative around that. And then his death is against the other character who's been narratively hyped up to be the strongest. So like both of those aspects work in tandem, even if in the grand scheme of things, it makes it so that Gege just didn't have to write Gojo for a majority of it. Like, and don't get me wrong, Gojo's still a very well-written character, I'm not going to say that. But, like, in terms of actually having to deal with the problem of Satoru Gojo and writing around it, outside of that little chunk of the early series, it just basically doesn't happen. Because he's not in the story for that long. He's barely... Like, if you were to take all of Gojo's screen time, especially if you subtract hidden inventory, if you take all of modern Gojo's screen time, it's, like, less than 25 chapters of this 200 and... something chapter manga. Why? See, that's you can tell JJK's been over a while, because I actually do forget how many chapters JJK was. There you go. Yeah. Let's see.
Any arguing that the result of the fight didn't make sense with what was happening. People thought Gege was contradicting himself and so on. But I think there's a deeper reason for why Gojo got the ending he got, and I haven't seen many people on YouTube talk about it. There's more to it than just saying that the chapters contradict themselves. It's a problem rooted within Gojo since his conception as a character. A problem
he may be talking about that narrative about so this may be a video. I may not make the video. We'll see.
Problem that Gege never knew how to solve, leading to this ending that left a big decline on Jujutsu Kaisen. And
which is actually fun. Like you know, a lot of people say JJK fell off after Gojo died. But like if you look at the numbers, it actually did the opposite. Like Gojo's death actually brought like way more people to it. Which is it's so weird. Like it is admittedly strange. But like everyone, because I think what happened is Gojo died. That spread like wildfire, and then everyone was like, okay, how are they going to beat Sukuna then? And then everyone was hanging week after week after week. That's when we started getting complaints about the Sukuna cycle, and that's like that. There's so much that ended up happening after Gojo's death that JJK fell off because of Gojo's death is, at least to me, kind of a weird argument. I feel like it didn't. But then again, that may just be me, you know, a JJK content creator who is going to stick it out regardless until the manga ended, and is currently sticking it out well after the manga's ended. Let's see.
Today's video, I will reveal to you guys the truth of Gege's decision to end Satoru Gojo. If you guys are interested in stuff like this, make sure to like and subscribe, since I will be doing a lot more content like this. You guys will be eating good. From the very first moment we encounter Gojo, he is introduced as the strongest sorcerer, consistently stated as such. However, like in many other shonen manga, there is a rival, and for Gojo, that rival is Sukuna. Sukuna is posed as the only being capable of challenging Gojo, creating a narrative tension that we, as the audience, anticipate. The battle between these two becomes a focal point of the series, promising a showdown between the strongest sorcerers. Gojo embodies the concept of the strongest in a way that serves both the narrative and the audience's expectations. Whenever a problem arises, the presence of Gojo offers immediate reassurance. As long as he's around, the conflict will be resolved. For example, when Hanami and Jogo infiltrate Jujutsu High, Gojo's entrance immediately signals the end of their threat. This scenario plays out repeatedly, and Gojo's strength becomes a crutch for the story, with every other problem essentially being solved by his intervention. This in turn makes it difficult for the other characters, like for example, Yuji and Yuta, to develop, as their growth is being stunned by Gojo's presence. Furthermore, the story itself struggles to progress when the strongest character can effortlessly resolve every conflict. At this stage of the narrative, the biggest threat to the main characters is Kenjaku, who for hundreds of years has been consistently defeated by Six Eyes users like Gojo. From Gege Akutami's perspective, writing a character like Gojo presents a significant challenge. With Gojo being the most powerful sorcerer in the story, there's always the problem that he could simply solve every conflict, leaving the rest of the cast in his shadow and stalling the plot's natural progression. This is where Gege just started cooking like crazy and made a beautiful story decision. He sealed Gojo away.
That's the thing, right? And like once again, not professionally published, have a degree, have a master's, not in anything near a writing field, but big bodacious booty butt cheeks. The thing is it is a beautiful writing decision because it makes sense within the context of the characters, it makes sense in the context of the narrative, and it's very like the scenario itself is well written. But ain't that like ducking it? Ain't that duck? Like it's weird. It's weird. It's like how do I explain it? How do I explain like the whole reason that video came to mind is just because I was thinking about Gojo's like overall narrative role and like his character, and I was like, man, sealing him away like. I do think it's impressive that Gege managed to build such a powerful connection. I mean, people managed to build such a powerful connection to a character who basically was rarely there. But the thing that has me reaching into my own brain and like rubbing around whether or not I think it's good writing or not is like, do I give you credit if you write around a problem? Like here's an example. Say I were to give you a math test, right? And I say you have to complete this math test in order for you to leave the room. And to complete it, what you do is, instead of answering the questions on the math test, you complete the math test by writing your name on it and then putting 0 for every answer. I didn't say you had to pass the math test. I didn't say you had to get 100 or 95 or anything like that. I just said you have to complete the math test. And technically, by putting 0 for every single answer and writing your name, you have completed the math test. Then you walk out. 'Cause I can't stop you. That technically is clever. You managed to outwit me. You did it. But at the same time, is that really impressive? Does that show off your mathematical skill by just getting rid of the problem? By avoiding it entirely? That's the thing that bothers me. I'm like, sure, like getting what, that's the thing. It's skirting, that's the thing. The math test example is poor. Because you still ended up completing it. The thing with Gege and Gojo is that Gege didn't bother. Put him in a box, take him out the box, kill him. The character was basically not even written around. He was executed and removed at every opportunity. And like, that's fine. That works. That's okay. But it just doesn't, like, and it works. That's the thing. It works. It works. So like that's one of the things, especially when I try to do narrative analysis. As you can tell, I'm a guy who likes, I think about things a whole lot. My brain, I got a massive forehead. Like, things just be popping and scrolling in my brain. So for the longest time, I just took Gojo's ceiling and not recently, but like for a while, ever since like 5 chapters after his death, I took Gojo's death. I was like, all right, that's fine. It's a good thing. It's a nice narrative decision and ultimately makes sense for the, like Lumiere says, for the progression of the plot and other characters. But it's like, Now that I'm just ruminating, now that I'm just rotating JJK around in my brain, like a chicken in a microwave, I'm just slowly rotating it. I'm like, is that lazy writing? You make a problem character. By the way you write the problem character, right around the problem character, is by literally removing him. I don't know. Let's see.
Hey, and this was not just for the sake of simplifying the plot, but also to create an emotional and narrative payoff. Yeah. The most obvious reason for sealing Gojo was to prevent him from constantly solving all of the problems that arose. But this decision also allowed Gege to go deeper into one of the best backstories in all of Shonen, Hidden Inventory. We explore the profound connection between Gojo and Geto. Both characters are bound by their shared experience of being the strongest, a bound that allows them to understand each other in ways no one else can. However, Geto's descent into darkness and eventual demise at the hands of his closest friend adds tragic depth to their relationship. This backstory lays the groundwork for the emotional weight of Gojo's eventual sealing. Now, this is where Gege's writing starts to stand out from the rest. Kenjaku, after centuries of listening to Six Eyes users, understands that Gojo cannot be beaten by conventional means. Gojo's strength made him the ultimate obstacle to Kenjaku's plans. So Kenjaku's strategy becomes clear. To defeat Gojo, he needs to disrupt Gojo's sense of security. And what better way to do that than by taking over his best friend's dead body? This act not only blindsides Gojo, who obviously never expected to see Geto again, but it also emotionally stuns him, leaving him vulnerable and allowing Kenjaku to seal him. The use of Kenjaku's technique.
See, that's the thing. That's so smart. That's like that. It's so smart. It's the smartest way to get around that. You give a character all the power in the world, but ultimately they're still a character. So use another character and their intelligence to break said character. I think that's the beauty of writing. That's the beauty of writing. I think that's why ultimately in that video I may explain it fully, I may rationalize it, but I'm still gonna end up saying it's good writing because from the perspective, I mean, and that's where like ultimately, and I'll talk about this in a second. I'll talk mostly about the sealing because obviously the sealing is the most major part of the narrative. He gets sealed before the hundreds, and then he gets sealed in the early 200s or unsealed in the early 200s, and then dies 16 chapters later. But the thing about this is if you were to just come to me and just say, hey, I'm going to write a story with a really, really powerful character, and I'm going to remove him from the plot for like half of it, I'd be like, huh? My main question would be like, why would you introduce that character in the first place if you didn't want to write for him? But at the same time, JJK in another, I mean, this is going to be slight spoilers for Out of High School, but I think I don't think that's getting another season. Apparently no one likes season 1, and I don't blame him because it skipped a whole bunch of the webtoon. But essentially, God of High School does a very similar thing with its main character. But to be fair, that was their main character. They basically locked that man somewhere else for a while, doing things I won't go into too deep depth because it's peak, go read God of High School. But with that being the case, they did that too. And notably, it even had the inverse effect what happened with Gojo, obviously because it was the main character, not a side character. So I don't know. It's the execution that makes it good. The concept itself, I'm not the biggest fan of. And you know what? I had that issue with that recently in a recent chapter of Undead and Luck, where I'm like, the execution makes it fine, and I'm okay with it, but like, just in concept, I don't like it. I'm morally opposed to it. We'll see.
In this moment is just perfect. His long history with the Six Eyes makes it apparent that he cannot defeat them head on. So he has to find a way to manipulate Gojo, to create a weakness, to make him vulnerable. By creating a scenario that draws Gojo in, Kenjaku ensures that Gojo's nature as the strongest sorcerer will lead to his own downfall. Gojo's reaction to Geto's reappearance, fueled by his emotional history with him, makes his ceiling believable. It makes sense, it's consistent. The emotional and narrative payoff is smooth and seamless as everything builds towards this moment. Gege's ability to weave together Kenjaku's motives, Gojo's backstory, the connection between Gojo and Geto, and the necessity of removing Gojo for the plot's progression is a masterpiece. Individually, each story piece, Kenjaku's technique, his history with the Six Eyes users, Gojo's strength, and his relationship with Geto could stand on its own. But when combined, they create a natural solution to the problem of how to deal with Gojo. The narrative that Gege constructed provides a satisfying, organic resolution, which is why Gojo's ceiling feels earned and justified within the story's context. This decision highlights Gege's skill in story building, and it sets the stage for deeper character development and plot progression without the overwhelming presence of the strongest sorcerer. This is how you should approach Gojo's character, but at some point, he needs to get unsealed, because there are still things Gojo needs to fulfill. For example, his Sukuna fight. Here's where fans started noticing something with Gege, which is something that eventually led to a disaster. Fans were noticing that Gege literally just hated Gojo. He did not want anything to do with that guy. Mentioning things like, now that Gojo is gone, it's looking like 2020 is gonna be a good year. Which is probably him expressing his relief of sealing Gojo and not having to deal with the problem he posed when it came to his writing. The recent Jujutsu Kaisen chapters have been all about how many times did you say Satoru Gojo, which just keeps reinforcing the narrative that Gege was sick of dealing with Gojo's character.
And that's the thing I'm also mixed on, right? Like, I'm personally the camp that Gege doesn't actually, like, dislike Gojo. But like, as a person who is writing a story himself, the biggest reason I'm so hesitant to introduce powerful characters that are not specifically locked to one area in the universe I'm creating is because they could solve every problem, and they're annoying to write around. If you give the protagonist extremely powerful assistance, and then that extremely powerful assistance doesn't help them for one reason or another, it's weird. It's just, you have to write around them. But at least for me, in my way of writing around them, is either locking them to a specific place, making them neutral, as in, like, they are indifferent to both the protagonist and the antagonist, and they're like, I don't care, leave me alone, or I will attack you. Or 3, I cut them. I have come up with like 7 extremely powerful characters. I'm writing a 10-book series. It'll take forever. It won't be done in this decade, I promise you. But I like to be fair, it's like 15. But I'm still not sure whether or not I want to do the extra 5 books or not. But still, in that universe, I've outlined the whole plot. I'm just writing it out. I'm like, I can't introduce this character. They cause too many narrative issues. I pluck them out. But I don't pluck them out in the way that Gege plucked them out. But at the same time, I like those characters. I like those archetypes, but it's just like the narrative wouldn't work. The narrative wouldn't function. But like Lumiere says, it's well done with how Gege does it with Gojo specifically, because of how Gojo is ripped out. How Gege grabs Gojo by the face and says, "No, get out of the narrative." But I don't think that's Gege actually hating Gojo like the fandom commonly believes. I think that's Gege just acknowledging that Gojo's an annoying thing to write around. Something can be annoying and you can still like it. Look at me. Okay, let's see.
This is exactly what led him to making that disastrous decision of off-screening Gojo. The decision to kill Gojo isn't inherently bad. If done correctly, it could have been a beautiful narrative moment, but Gege's execution of Gojo's death felt like it wasn't refined whatsoever, with several issues that undermine the moment's impact. To start, Gojo's dialogue after being hit by Sukuna's slice feels forced, as if Gege had written himself into a corner. First off,
now, how do I feel about this? How do I feel about this? How do I feel about this? This is another thing I've been like flip-flopping back and forth on. The scalar man in me is like, Sukuna's the strongest, Gojo says Sukuna's the strongest. Like, the scalar man in me is fine with the dialogue, because like, it makes perfect sense. Kind of. As long as I accept it at face value and just go with the rest of the narrative hype behind Sukuna. It just makes sense. Bada bing, bada boom. Obviously, we've seen the Heian air form. But I'll admit, you know what the funny thing is? The rest of the Shinjuku Showdown makes those statements Gojo made so weird. And I'll admit, the Shinjuku Showdown and scaling the characters in it and scaling those characters in Sukuna, it is so weird. It is so. I may talk about that. I may literally make a video called "Scaling the Shinjuku Showdown is a Nightmare" because of how much more powerful Heian Body Sukuna is implied and stated and all this to be than Meguna. And I know he gets nerfed though. He has brain damage. Yeah, but it's nightmarish. But the statements Gojo makes, I'll admit the glaze does seem excessive. And the off-screening is a strange choice. But you know why I think Gege did it? So videos like this could be made. So people like this could get mad. Like, people are still like, that's clearly, this video was made, I think, like 2 months ago. Like, these people are still clearly talking about it. It's still clearly doing it. And I think it's mainly because it would cause more controversy. I still remember opening 236. And heck, forget it, opening 236. I remember people in the comments. I was getting, my phone was blowing up on both my platforms. I was like, people were like, Pencil, pick up the door. And I think if we had opened up 236, or we had ended 235, with Gojo being like that, and we saw the world cutting slash, I think that it wouldn't have had the same impact that it did. And like, if I'm Gege, and I specifically want to go for like heavy impact, and still give respect to the character, and their arc of like loneliness and the strength that comes with, or the loneliness that comes with strength, I think it still works. And once again, it's literally just like the whole sealing Gojo thing, where like, in concept, you tell me you off-screen your most popular money-making character after unsealing him not just 16 chapters ago, or not even, no, 15 chapters ago, and you off him and then proceed to cut to the afterlife. I'd be like, that's so weird. But like, on a weird narrative level, on a character writing level, and on a I want this to have impact level, I think it all makes sense. It has the most impact that it could ever have, more than us ever seeing the slash could be. It leaves the world-cutting slash mysterious for later on in the future, in having us have this whole discussion for it to be cut down, and it led to a whole bunch of theorizing, more speculation on that. It shows Sukuna's mastery and manipulation of the Jujutsu system, his own skill as a sorcerer, and the Gojo glaze, while it is a teeny tiny bit excessive, also makes sense considering this is the first time he could ever look at a guy outside of Toji when he was pre-awakened and be like, oh yeah, this guy's stronger than me. The glaze is only well earned because it's Satoru Gojo coming and saying all this. Someone who never had to say all this, never could say all that because he was never rivaled, except for Toji. And then he went and came and one-shot that man, which he didn't do to Sukuna. So like, I think like it's weird, I'll admit, but I don't think it's bad. I think it works. That's, again, this retrospective me talking. In the moment, you can see it. I was rough. It was rough for your boy. Mainly because the Sukuna sloppers were cheering from the heavens. I could hear them on the moon. But regardless, let's see.
The claim that Sukuna didn't go all out is absurd. From the start of the series, Sukuna was fiending for the Ten Shadows technique.
But I think he didn't. Yeah, I know people are going to be like, oh, here comes Pencil. He was once a Gojo Glazer, now he's a Sukuna slobber. Oh, Lord, watch this man hop on me. And I'm about to hop on me, y'all. I'm about to hop on it. I'm about to do backflips on it. I made a whole video talking about it. But tell me, y'all, if Sukuna stands there, not even attacks, or let's just say Sukuna defends himself inside in the 3-minute small ball, defends himself, never turning domain implication off, completely giving up on the Raga adaptation strategy, and Gojo's just stuck with small ball against Malevolent Shrine for 3 minutes. And remember, every single time Gojo broke the barrier, it was right at the 3-minute mark. Right at the 3-minute mark. Do you really think Gojo could have won? Do you? How? Sukuna wasn't going to let him charge a Hollow Purple, unless he just stood there, which he wouldn't. And Gojo wouldn't be able to do enough damage through Domain Amp. Every single technique of his would have been softened. He'd have to land infinite Black Flashes. And even then, considering how Sukuna face tanked a Black Flash, well, not face tank, he chest tanked and then Maharaga came out. But still, that's the thing. There is a clear way for Sukuna to win if he was actively trying to kill Gojo. But as Sukuna himself says, hey, I was trying to get a model to surpass your infinity and evolve by technique. And clearly you can see it. I've gone through it in that. It is a 40-minute video on the channel. And it was named super hyperbolically for clickbait. But legit, you can see it. And I don't know. I've looked through that comment section. I'm going to go back through. I'm going to start streaming and I'm going to start looking through the comments of all my videos and just trying to catch up on all of them. Because seeing that little tab in the YouTube studio that says, here are the comments you haven't responded to. And it's like 30,000. I let those get far too away from me. So I'm going to start doing that. But even still, I don't know. I believe Sukuna didn't go all out. Once you like take the Gojo glasses off and you look at the Sukuna battle, Sukuna is acting weird. And he's not fighting directly in the way that he should. All because he wanted to include Raga and protect Raga for the technique evolution. You put a hand-body Sukuna in the same fight that Megano was in, and he doesn't turn Domain Amp off, and he's doing Malevolent Shrine, Gojo has no way to win. No way to win. No way to win. I promise you that. I'll make a full video talking about that later.
To stand a chance against Gojo. While we could give the benefit of the doubt that this statement is just referring that Gojo knew Sukuna was hiding something, like his true form, but even then, Gojo's own statement that he doubted he could defeat Sukuna without 10 shadows raises serious questions.
And it does in the moment when you're reading it for the first time, but think about it. I can see a vision. I can definitely see a vision where that happens, where he just uses Shrine and Domain Amp. It's still a Carlo abilities, but that's no 10 shadows. That is no 10 shadows. The statement makes sense. You just gotta think about it. You gotta get the fingers in the brain and just massage it a little bit. Think about it. What does Gojo do if Sukuna stands there, Domain Amps, or worse, fights him actively as he Domain Amps? Uh-oh. All that blue pulling and throwing that Gojo was doing, not gonna work anymore. The reds point blank to the face that Sukuna was barely reacting to, not going to work anymore, or at least not be as effective. He's just going to keep RCTing through it. He will not be able to do enough significant damage to Sukuna in time as long as Sukuna keeps Domain Amping, which we know he can do. And remember, every single clash went down to the last second, y'all. Unless Unlimited Hollow pops out way earlier than it did in canon, or Gojo manages to get off a quick Hollow Purple, I think Sukuna has that man's number without the 10 shadows. I'm just going to say it. I've said it before. It's not like a surprising thing.
This moment of self-doubt feels out of place, especially considering Gojo's previous confidence in his ability to defeat Prime Sukuna. Like when Yuji asked him, it was a picture of Heian era Sukuna.
But then again, Gojo has no context for that. And don't get me wrong. Back when I was a full-time, full-op Gojo glazer, I'd go to all the statements made externally about Gojo being the strongest. I went to literally everything to be like, Gojo has to win. Like, literally, if it doesn't make narrative sense. But, at least for this one, obviously I'll admit, the Gojo's the strongest character in the manga statement from a volume extra, that's just a lie. Like it is just a lie now. Like, we know that now. Unless you take it as, oh, he's the strongest character at the time of that statement, which does make sense, unironically. But, and there are ways to interpret almost every single Gojo strongest statement as either strongest of the modern era, or strongest at the time of the narrative when it's being spoken of, or blah, 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 or blah, blah, or blah, blah, blah. But for this in particular, you can just argue Gojo didn't know. And we still don't, I'm just going to make a video talking about the many different interpretations of what the fingers do. But, maybe Gojo thought the fingers were linear, and they were all just 5% increases. Maybe the fingers were exponential. Maybe the fingers didn't do anything at all. Maybe Sukuna didn't go all out in their first encounter when Gojo got a judgment. That's the thing. There's so many other ways to work around this. I don't think this is too crazy. And characters in JJK have been confident and wrong. It's actually kind of a running theme. Think of all the different characters. From the Culling games, to pre-Culling games in Shibuya, to literally even before Shibuya. Many characters in this universe, including Gojo, have made confidence about their strength, them being the strongest, and have been wrong. So Gojo, up until that point, while he was confident, he was just wrong. Let's see.
Yuji asked him about this, Gojo essentially said it'd be difficult, but that he'd win. Yet during the fight, Gojo is not only holding his own, but actually outperforming Sukuna. Even with Sukuna having more experience and an additional technique, which is actually the technique stated to equal Limitless. Despite that, Gojo's talent was clearly shining through. So the sudden self-doubt is jarring and inconsistent with everything we've seen from him. Gege's decision to off-screen Gojo to resolve the problem of him being too strong also leads to a major inconsistency. Sukuna's ability to land the world slash made him just as powerful as Gojo, which in turn made the main cast's victory against him feel extremely forced and inconsistent, of course. The confusion gets even deeper.
That I do agree with. That's the one thing I will readily 100% agree on. Like I've already mentioned, I made my arguments how I don't fully agree with everything 100 says, or not 100. Gosh, I'm thinking of the. I'm sorry, I'm in the middle of a bulk recording session right now, and I have a 100 video up on the docket. And I just recorded a 100 video before this. If you couldn't tell, I'm like literally switching YouTubers. I'm switching between Flame, 100, and Lumiere. I'm like rotating those three to make sure I'm talking about different people every single time. So sorry about that, but. Lumiere, I already talked about how I kind of disagree with some of Lumiere's earlier points about the inconsistency or the statements Gojo makes. But yes, I wholeheartedly agree with the idea that the cast and crew, who have been stated numerous times to never be in the same league as Gojo, suddenly fighting the prime version of Sukuna, admittedly all brain damage, but no nerfs. Like, every character should have gotten Kashi mode, essentially. The fact that every character didn't is blind. It's blind. It's good it's character writing for Sukuna. Clearly, he wanted to have himself a good time, and he messed around and found out. But it is genuinely plot, and it does feel weird that the same guy who was apparently super duper stronger than Gojo suddenly decided to, I guess, nerf himself infinitesimally to allow the cast and crew to have any sort of chance. I guess because the cast and crew need to win somehow. Yeah, that is weird. That's the thing. It's why I say scaling in this Jujutsu Showdown is a weird nightmare. Yuta damages Sukuna with a punch. A punch. Regular Yuta. He's still main amped at that time. Actually, no. Even before the debate, like, it's so weird. Like, I won't sit here and lie to you. It's weird. But Yuji's nerfing. How much though? Like, that's the thing. I'll talk about it.
At the Shinjuku Showdown, when Maki, someone who shares a sight similar to Maharaga's, is able to dodge Sukuna's slash. If Maki can do this, then it just follows that Gojo can too.
I wouldn't say that, mainly because of the differences. Like, one, Binding Vow was made for the original one, and two, we know Maki and Toji just have weird perception. Like, weird perception, even comparison to the Six Eyes. Notably, it's still hotly debated on whether or not Gojo can even see Sukuna's slashes. It's weird. And I don't know why he can't. You would think the Six Eyes, which are stated numerous times have the best perception and energy reading in the verse, they would be able to do it, but they just can't for some reason. I don't know. You could definitely argue, though, the reason Gojo couldn't... But even then, he can see... Like, that's the thing. I'll admit, that's also strange. Don't get me wrong. I love the Maki feat of possibly dodging either a full chain dismantle or world slash. I love it. But it's weird. It is weird. Like, that's the thing. I can't deny Lumiere on this one. Like, it is just strange. It is wholeheartedly strange. And I don't really have an excuse for it. I can't cope for that one.
With his Six Eyes, would have been more than capable of doing the same thing. Because the common theme between their vision...
The only excuse I can give that moment in particular is, say Gojo did see it, but he couldn't tell what it was. Like, he didn't know that it was different. He didn't know that it was the technique extension. He didn't even know that Sukuna could do that. So he stood there, assuming it would interact like everything else that would interact with Infinity, since he had it up at the time. But then he got sliced in half because he didn't know it was going to cut through space. And by the time it started to cleave through Infinity and cut through him, he couldn't react in time because it was already so close. Kind of like how Teen Gojo doesn't react to Toji getting into him. It doesn't move after that because it was just too close. And it pierced to Infinity, something he already had his guard up for. So, like, that's how I rationalize it. But it's still weird. I ain't gonna get it. It's still weird.
Vision is being able to analyze and break down a technique. This shift in power dynamics, where Gojo was once the undeniable victor, only to suddenly be killed in a random, nonsensical way, feels like a rushed decision made by Gege to rid himself of a character that had become too difficult to write. The contradictions between Gojo's earlier...
And that's the thing, I agree. It's why I fight. Killing Gojo is acknowledging that you can't write around Gojo. Sealing Gojo is acknowledging that you can't write around Gojo. But simultaneously, sealing Gojo and killing Gojo both was technically writing around Gojo. And ultimately, I'll be real. Is the Shinjuku Showdown a scaling mess and a nightmare? Absolutely. Do all the scaling decisions or character decisions or even character relativity make sense in the Shinjuku Showdown after the Gojo vs. Sukuna fight? Not really. Would I have preferred Gojo win? Now? Ask me then, of course. I was banking on that. I was ready to laugh in all the Sukuna fans' faces. And then I became a Sukuna fan. And ultimately, I think no. I think we would have not gotten Yuta Domain. I don't think we would have gotten the little glimpse of a card versus Urube we got. We wouldn't have gotten Itadori versus Sukuna. We wouldn't have gotten Higuruma versus Sukuna. We wouldn't have gotten none of the stuff we would have gotten. None of it. None of it. Not a lick. And I'll take that versus Gojo just winning in 236 or 235 and then, I don't know, merger, I guess? The merger's not a character. Oh, but the merger's Tengen. Tengen's not a character that we knew that much about. Sukuna would go on to become infinitely more interesting than any merger plotline could ever be. So, like, it's a sacrifice, sure, but it's a sacrifice I'm willing to make. Let's see.
Confidence, and then the sudden backtracking in his dialogue shows how forced this shift feels, leaving the audience with more questions than answers. The issue here isn't just Gojo's death, but the way Gege handled it, which makes it feel less like a natural progression and more like a reactive decision to deal with Gojo's overwhelming strength, which explains how Jujutsu Kaisen's favorite character got sabotaged. If you guys...
Oh, alright. That's the end of the video. Alright, I'll leave it for this. Ooh, does Gojo really need infinity? We'll react to that one too, Lumiere. But with it being the case, W video. Like I said, I'm not fully on the idea. Oh, he did a stream about it. I'm assuming that's a stream. It's an hour 20-minute video. But is he wrong about Jacob's Ladder? I don't know. I'll have to watch that. But on my own time, I'm not going to do a live reaction to that. An hour and 22-minute video? Do I look insane? I'm going to react to the No Operator one eventually. Yeah, the JJK Chimera arc one, I'm going to react to it. That's going to be a 3-hour video. I know none of you are watching to the end of that 3-hour video. But I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it because enough people have asked for it and I want to react to it anyway. But I'm going to do it. But that's it. But overall, a W video, an amazingly W video. I agree with a lot of Lumiere's points. I feel weird about some of them, but that's because I'm a Sukuna slopper. I have my own biases, obviously. And overall, I think he was destined to die. If only for the fact that the narrative had to progress and the fact that he was not the main character. In a story where Gojo was actually the main character, he could have won. But since he wasn't, he was destined to die. But with it being the case, if you made all the way to the end of this video, please leave after death. Why not? Just leave after death in the comment section down below. I'd like to thank you so much for watching. Please remember to leave a like, share, comment, and subscribe. Make sure you hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, you don't have a picture down below where you can support me for as low as $1 a month. Things like exclusive videos, early content, and more. You also now become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month to get that was weird. $3 a month to get the same perks and more. Some of those perks will include the live reactions to every other series I am to review, and variations of all my videos, and if you become a $25 patron or a $25 member, you can order whatever video you want. Also, I do have a link to my Ko-Fi in the description down below. You can drop 5 minutes for a short video, 20 minutes for a long video, or any beats at all. Any support is always greatly appreciated. Now, I'd like to thank you so much for watching once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is That Guy with a Pencil, writing off. I'd like to give a thank you to our sketch tier members: Greyhound, Eternal Flame, Red Wolf 4765, Astro, Super Flame Zero, Glacier, XZ, G Prosper, Planet Crone, Zeta, and Brandon Payne. Then I'd like to give a little thank you to our line art tier patrons: Sean, Midnight Lord 21, Kevin, Encarnacion, and A+A. And then I'd like to give a huge thank you to our Ink tier members: Fine, Austin Wimberly, Euchiha, Yuki Ally, and Carlo Alaimo. Then I'd like to give a gargantuan thank you to our digital art tier members: J Warrior and AZ Void. Then I'd like to give another gargantuan thank you to our colored art tier patrons: Overlord Zero, Waki Minos, and Idemokami. Then I'd like to give a final legendary top of the line thank you to our That Guy with a Pencil tier patron, the glorious king, Calvin Elder.